Number 1. Mobutu Sese Seko. In the heart of Africa, a leader emerged who would not just rule his nation, but own it. Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, crafted an image of himself as the father of the nation, complete with a signature leopard skin hat. Behind the carefully constructed persona was a man with extravagant tastes. He frequently chartered Concorde jets for lavish shopping trips to Paris, while his people languished in poverty. Mobutu's rule was the definition of kleptocracy, a government of thieves. He systematically embezzled state funds, treating the national treasury as his personal bank account. Estimates suggest he plundered between $4 and $15 billion, a sum that mirrored the nation's foreign debt. Seizing power in 1965, Mobutu transformed Zaire into his personal fiefdom. He controlled diamond mines, copper exports, and virtually every profitable enterprise. Government officials were expected to steal. It was the only way they could survive, as salaries often went unpaid. His palace at Gabatalite, deep in the jungle, was dubbed the Versailles of the jungle, featuring pink marble from Italy and a runway for the Concorde. Meanwhile, Zaire's infrastructure crumbled. As his health failed and rebellion grew, his grip on power finally slipped. He fled in 1997, leaving behind a nation hollowed out by decades of systematic plunder. The country he abandoned was left economically crippled, its infrastructure in ruins. Mobutu is no longer remembered as just a man. His name now defines a kind of power, a leader who consumes the very state he governs. Number 2. Ferdinand Marcos. In 1972, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law, citing civil strife and communist threats as justification. The move allowed Marcos to bypass constitutional term limits and silence all opposition, initiating a 14-year period of one-man rule. While Ferdinand consolidated political control, his wife Imelda became a global symbol of excess. Her collection of thousands of pairs of shoes was just a footnote in the family's epic plunder. Together, the Marcoses are estimated to have secretly amassed a fortune of up to $10 billion. Under the cover of fighting communism, Marcos and his cronies systematically looted the nation. They controlled monopolies in key industries: sugar, coconuts, tobacco, siphoning off profits while Filipino farmers barely survived. Foreign aid was diverted into offshore accounts. Government contracts were awarded to family members who kicked back substantial percentages. By 1986, the Filipino people had had enough. A fraudulent election sparked outrage, and a peaceful uprising known as the People Power Revolution forced the family into exile. In their wake, investigators found hidden bank accounts, offshore corporations, and stolen wealth scattered across Switzerland and the United States. Decades later, however, the family methodically engineered a political comeback. A new generation of voters was swayed by a revised narrative of a golden age. What began as a story of theft has become a reminder that enough wealth can bend memory, history, and truth itself. Number 3. Suharto. For 3 decades, he was the smiling general, a figure of stability in a volatile region. Suharto rose to power in Indonesia in the mid-1960s, establishing an authoritarian regime he called the New Order. His rule delivered undeniable economic growth and modernization, but this progress was built upon a foundation of cronyism and institutionalized corruption. His 6 children all controlled vast business empires, creating a system where political power and personal wealth were inseparable. The corruption under Suharto was systematic and institutional. Each of his children controlled monopolies in critical sectors, from the National Car Project to toll roads and television. Every major business deal required the participation of a Suharto family member. By the time he was forced from office, Suharto and his family were estimated to have accumulated a fortune of up to $35 billion. The 1997 Asian financial crisis exposed the rot at the core of his regime. As the economy collapsed and prices soared, widespread protests erupted, demanding his resignation. After 32 years, the unshakable leader was forced to step down, ushering in an era of reform. Indonesia has since transformed into a vibrant democracy. Legal efforts to recover the family's stolen assets have been met with limited success. Suharto's reign has become a national case study in how corruption can mortgage a country's future for the benefit of a few. Number 4. Sani Abacha. Some leaders build monuments to themselves. Others simply treat the nation as a vault. General Sani Abacha seized power in Nigeria in a 1993 military coup, ruling for just 5 years. His method of plunder was brutally direct and efficient. He would instruct his national security advisor to request funds for fictional security threats, then take the cash directly from the central bank. Abacha and his inner circle are believed to have systematically siphoned off billions from Africa's largest oil producer. The total amount stolen is estimated to be as high as $5 billion. Cash would be withdrawn from the central bank under the guise of security expenses, then loaded onto planes bound for foreign banks. His family operated a network of shell companies as conduits for the stolen money. While Abacha stole, ordinary Nigerians suffered as infrastructure crumbled and public services collapsed. His reign was cut short by his sudden death in 1998, triggering the country's return to democracy. The end of his rule marked the beginning of an unprecedented international effort to reclaim the stolen funds. For over 2 decades, Nigerian authorities, with help from Switzerland and the United States, have been tracing and recovering the Abacha loot. Billions have been returned, often earmarked for development projects. The Abacha loot is now a defining case in global asset recovery, proving that national borders no longer ensure a safe haven for illicit wealth. Number 5. The Duvalier family. In Haiti, tyranny became a family business passed from father to son. François Duvalier, known as Papa Doc, took power in 1957, creating a regime of fear enforced by his brutal private militia, the Tonton Macoutes. Upon his death in 1971, power passed to his 19-year-old son, Jean-Claude, or Baby Doc. If the father's rule was defined by terror, the son's was defined by opulent greed. Baby Doc and his wife flaunted their wealth, spending millions on extravagant parties, jewelry, and art, while Haiti remained the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Their 1980 wedding cost $3 million of state funds. The Duvaliers treated Haiti's treasury as their personal inheritance, diverting foreign aid and stripping state enterprises of assets. By the mid-1980s, the Haitian people rose up against decades of oppression and theft. In 1986, a popular uprising forced Baby Doc and his family to flee into exile in France. The dynasty left behind a nation stripped of its resources and trapped in a cycle of poverty. The total amount they plundered is estimated to be between $300 and $800 million. He returned to Haiti years later, but attempts to bring him to justice were unsuccessful before his death in 2014. The Duvalier dynasty remains a lasting scar on Haiti's history, illustrating how concentrated power can impoverish a nation over generations. Number 6. Slobodan Milosevic. Some leaders steal money, others steal the very idea of peace. Slobodan Milosevic rose through the Serbian Communist Party, becoming president of Serbia in 1989 on a wave of nationalist fervor. As Yugoslavia disintegrated, Milosevic's regime fueled devastating wars in Croatia, Bosnia, and Kosovo. He exploited ethnic grievances to consolidate power, leading to ethnic cleansing and the worst atrocities in Europe since World War II. While his people were engulfed in conflict, a system of corruption flourished. International sanctions crippled the economy, but state-sponsored smuggling and black market dealings kept his regime afloat. His wife presided over a network of corruption that extended throughout Serbian society. The wars devastated the Balkans. The siege of Sarajevo lasted nearly 4 years, and the Srebrenica massacre saw over 8,000 murdered in what was ruled genocide. His downfall came not from an invading army, but from his own people. After he refused to accept defeat in the 2000 election, hundreds of thousands stormed the capital, forcing him from power. He was arrested and became the first sitting head of state charged with war crimes. He died in his cell in 2006 before a verdict could be reached. Milosevic's corruption is now understood in human terms: lives lost and ethnic divisions deliberately inflamed for political advantage. Number 7. Viktor Yanukovych. A leader's home can sometimes tell the entire story of their rule. Viktor Yanukovych was elected president of Ukraine in 2010. His sprawling estate, Mezhyhirya, became a national symbol of corruption, featuring a private zoo, golf course, and a floating restaurant shaped like a pirate ship. During his presidency, Yanukovych and his inner circle, the family, are believed to have embezzled up to $37 billion. His decision in late 2013 to reject an EU agreement in favor of closer ties with Russia sparked massive protests. The Euromaidan revolution saw hundreds of thousands demanding his removal. In February 2014, as protests turned violent and over 100 were killed, he fled to Russia. Citizens who stormed his mansion discovered cartoonish opulence and a paper trail of immense theft. His ousting was followed by Russia's annexation of Crimea and conflict in eastern Ukraine. Yanukovych's palace is now a public museum, proving that evidence of corruption can be transformed into a monument for the people who overthrew it. Number 8. The Somoza family. For over 4 decades, Nicaragua was not a country with a ruling family, but a family business with a flag. The Somoza dynasty began in 1937 with Anastasio Somoza Garcia, who used his position as head of the National Guard to seize power. Over 43 years, the family amassed immense wealth by controlling nearly every key sector of the economy, treating the national treasury as personal inheritance. Their fortune grew to an estimated $900 million. The dynasty's final collapse was accelerated when the last Somoza president embezzled millions in earthquake relief funds intended for victims in 1972. This galvanized opposition, fueling the Sandinista revolution. In 1979, after a bloody civil war, the last Somoza fled, ending the dynasty's rule. They left behind one of the most indebted and impoverished nations in Latin America. The final Somoza was assassinated in exile a year later. What was once a historical period is now taught as a case study in how a ruling family can merge itself with the state. Number 9. Robert Mugabe. A story that begins with a liberator can end with a tyrant. Robert Mugabe rose to prominence as a revolutionary hero, leading Zimbabwe to independence in 1980. In the early years, his government made gains in health and education, but his rule took a dark turn, marked by violent suppression and a disastrous land reform program that crippled the nation's agricultural backbone. As the economy spiraled with hyperinflation reaching astronomical levels, Mugabe's regime became synonymous with corruption. His second wife, Grace, earned the nickname Gucci Grace for extravagant spending, while Zimbabweans faced extreme hardship. At its peak in 2008, inflation reached 79.6 billion% month on month. After 37 years, his grip on power was broken by his own allies. In November 2017, the military placed the 93-year-old under house arrest. Faced with impeachment, he resigned. The nation he left behind was economically shattered. Mugabe's legacy illustrates how revolutionary ideals can be distorted when power concentrates in a single leader for too long. Number 10. Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo. In the small African nation of Equatorial Guinea, one man's rule has spanned nearly half a century. Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo seized power from his own uncle in a bloody coup in 1979. Then, in the 1990s, vast offshore oil reserves were discovered. Instead of transforming the nation's fortunes, the oil wealth transformed the fortunes of the ruling family. His son Teodorin became infamous for a lifestyle of mansions, private jets, and supercars funded by state money. Authorities in the US, France, and Switzerland seized his assets, including a $35 million Malibu mansion, a Bugatti Veyron, and Michael Jackson's crystal-studded glove. Despite having one of the highest GDPs per capita in Africa, most of Equatorial Guinea's population lives in extreme poverty. As the world's longest-serving current president, Obiang has maintained his grip for over 4 decades. Equatorial Guinea is a real-world example of the resource curse, where immense natural wealth has translated into widespread suffering rather than shared prosperity. Number 11. Augusto Pinochet. General Augusto Pinochet came to power in Chile in a 1973 military coup that overthrew the democratically elected government. For 17 years, he ruled with an iron fist, responsible for the deaths and disappearances of thousands. His regime was known for radical free market policies that were praised internationally. Publicly, he projected an image of a disciplined soldier who lived modestly. But decades later, a U.S. Senate investigation revealed over 125 bank accounts holding millions of dollars. The myth unraveled in 1998 when he was arrested in London on human rights charges. Back in Chile, he was indicted for tax fraud and embezzlement, though he avoided conviction due to ill health. He died in 2006, never facing full accountability. Chile continues to grapple with deep divisions left by his rule. Number 12. Najib Razak. Najib Razak became Prime Minister of Malaysia in 2009, launching a state investment fund called 1MDB to promote economic development. But behind the scenes, 1MDB became the vehicle for one of the largest financial scandals in history. Billions were systematically diverted, funding super yachts, Hollywood films, priceless art, and extravagant gifts for Najib's wife. As details emerged, public outrage grew. In the 2018 election, Malaysian voters delivered a stunning rebuke, ending his party's 61-year rule. He was arrested, found guilty of abuse of power, money laundering, and criminal breach of trust, and sentenced to 12 years in prison. In 2022, he began serving his sentence, becoming the first former Malaysian prime minister imprisoned. imprisoned. The 1MDB scandal shows that corruption alone does not guarantee impunity. Number 13. Nicolae Ceausescu. Nicolae Ceausescu ruled Romania for 24 years, creating one of the most repressive personality cults in the Eastern Bloc. He styled himself the genius of the Carpathians. In the 1980s, he embarked on a disastrous austerity program to pay off foreign debt. While his people suffered severe shortages, he poured billions into building the world's heaviest building, the People's Palace, demolishing 1/5 of historic Bucharest. In December 1989, inspired by the fall of communism elsewhere, Romanians finally revolted. A speech meant to pacify crowds turned into open defiance, sparking nationwide revolution. The Ceausescus fled, but were quickly captured. After a summary trial on Christmas Day, they were executed by firing squad. Ceausescu's palace now stands as a permanent lesson in the cost of prioritizing ego over a nation's welfare. Number 14. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein formally took power in Iraq in 1979, ruling with absolute authority for over 2 decades. He controlled the nation's vast oil wealth, using it to fund a massive military and build dozens of lavish palaces. His sons, Uday and Qusay, became notorious for brutality and extravagant lifestyles funded by the state. Even under crushing sanctions, his regime manipulated the UN's Oil for Food program to generate billions in illegal revenue. His rule ended in 2003 following the US-led invasion. After 9 months on the run, he was captured hiding in an underground hole. He was put on trial, convicted of crimes against humanity, and executed in 2006. The capture of Saddam is remembered as a lesson that absolute power ends in humility. Number 15. The Kim dynasty. In North Korea, the state is the family. The world's only communist dynasty began with Kim Il-sung, who established a totalitarian state built around the ideology of Juche. This power passed to his son Kim Jong-il, then to his grandson Kim Jong-un. The family has been elevated to godlike status through an all-encompassing cult of personality. While the dynasty preached self-reliance, economic mismanagement led to a devastating famine in the 1990s. During mass starvation, Kim Jong-il was spending hundreds of thousands annually on luxury cognac while people ate tree bark to survive. The family's wealth, estimated in the billions, is managed through Office 39, which engages in arms sales, drug trafficking, and counterfeiting. For 3 generations, the dynasty has maintained absolute control through propaganda, isolation, and brutal repression. Under Kim Jong-un, the state continues pouring resources into vanity projects and nuclear weapons. The Kim family's rule has become the most successful, long-running criminal enterprise in modern history, effectively capturing an entire nation of 25 million people.